Good evening. The old man here, November 26th, 2024. Subject I want to talk about today is 401ks and should you convert that to gold and silver. Let me first of all say this video was inspired by a channel called Margaret Love Richard, or Margaret Love Rich, actually. I hope this answers some of your questions, at least to the best of my ability. Let me first of all say I'm not an expert on 401ks. I don't have one. I never have had one. And I realize from a person that has one, the decisions to do with it is rather tough. I would obviously recommend more research beyond my thoughts. But let me cover a few things to help put it into perspective, I guess. First of all, everybody talks about the 10% penalties for early withdrawals. Well, if you look at the past history of gold, let's not talk silver for today, but let's talk gold. The history of gold in the last year is up 33%. Now that fluctuates depending on exactly what time you do this research, whether it's 33, 34, 35%, 30%, whatever, close enough. Let's call it 30%. But that could be unusual. I think that kind of growth is here to stay. But let's look at a longer track record. So for the last 5 years, annually, gold is up 4.5% in that time frame, for a total of 72.2% in 5 years. If you look at the last 10-year history, gold is up 9.3% annually on average. That is a total of 143%. And if you look at it from the last 20-year perspective, it's up 10.2%, or a total of 601% in the last 20 years. I think that's a pretty good track record. I think it would be safe to say that gold should stay on the track of increasing in dollar value, if you will. Just to compare apples to apples, let's look at the dollar aspect. So if you're looking at losing 10% penalty on your 401k by cashing it out, moving to something else, let's say gold, you can make up for that 10% in the first year after conversion. I think it's safe to say. There's no guarantees, of course, but I think it's safe to say that that you can make up for that in a year. If gold stays on track for the next year, like this past year of 30%, then you'd be even in a third of a year. Okay, wouldn't even take a whole year to be even, or let's say overcome that 10% decrease in or that 10% penalty, let's say. All right, so next thing I think we should think about then is the fact that you're going to pay income tax on whatever you convert off of your 401k. You're going to convert, or you're going to pay income tax on converting back to the dollar that you have been at up until this point, it's been tax deferred, of which means you're going to pay taxes in the future. It's not like it's tax-free. It's not tax-free, and that's what so many people hear when they talk about 401ks. They hear tax exempt when actually it's tax deferred. In other words, you're going to pay taxes in the future on that income. Well, with that being said, if you're going to pay taxes on that income in the future anyways, do you think it'd be safe to say that the taxes in the future will be higher than they are today? Okay, Donald Trump promises to cut taxes. Okay, I believe he intends to do that. I truly do. In the future, you may not even see a federal income tax. It's possible. However, I'm going to run with the trend that we've seen since World War I, and where we got federal income tax from. That's when it started. They said it was temporary to pay off the cost of the war. And here we are. When did that end? 1918 is when the World War I ended. Okay, and we're still paying federal income tax. So I wish Trump the best of luck. If anybody can do it, Trump can. But for now, I'm going to assume that that's a tough road to hoe, and that may be very difficult to do in the meantime. So let's say you pay 30% income tax, 35% income tax on that money today. So be it. You're going to pay it sooner or later. And my thoughts are, if you wait till later, you're actually going to pay more income tax on that than you will today. So there is no no net loss there. Okay, you're going to pay sooner or later. Why not be it today? And I guess the next question would be then, why would I want to convert my 401k into gold? Well, let me put it to you this way. There's lots of guys like Warren Buffett that are value investors, all right? They find a company that's got good values, good principles, and a proven track record of making money. And at this moment, he's sitting on over $300 billion in cash that he has pulled out of the stock market and put in bonds. Why would he? Short-term bonds, of course, not long-term bonds, but short-term bonds. Why in God's name would he do that? Well, there's one good reason. And at his last board meeting, or investors meeting, I should say, he told his investors that at this time, he sees no value in the stock market. There's no companies that the PE ratio is anywhere near what it should be. So at this time, he's pulling back out of stocks. Now, that's his gig. He ain't a gold and silver guy. When you're talking $300 billion, you're not going to buy $300 billion worth of physical gold. He's just not going to do it. It just doesn't make sense, because your intent would then be to turn around and sell it and buy stocks in the future. Well, that doesn't make sense at all. That's just way too much drag. That's going to cost way too much. Not only the moving of the gold, the acquiring of the gold, the moving of the gold, the storing of the gold, it just doesn't make sense. The other thing he's not going to do is buy paper gold and paper silver. Again, that doesn't make sense. It's too volatile. That market's being pushed up and pushed down far too much at this time. And I'll refer to that as the dumb money. In my opinion, dumb money is pushing paper silver and paper gold. What do I mean by dumb money? Well, in the industry, you got what they call smart money and dumb money. Smart money is the investors that do the research and invest according to value. Okay, now that may be an oversimplified version of smart money, but then let me explain what I call dumb money, or what they call dumb money. Actually, that's not my term, it's theirs. Dumb money is somebody that chases, let's see the word I'm looking for. They don't chase value, but they chase that word's not coming to me. Let's say profits. In other words, there's no value in the stock. The only thing they hope to do is buy it at price A, and in the future, whether that be a week, 10 days, 2 months, a year, they hope to find somebody that's dumber than they are and pay even more for that overvalued stock. Okay? They are chasing equities, and it's just not there. So what they're doing is they're not trading on value, they're trading on emotion. Okay? Well, emotion, that'll put you in a really bad place in a hurry. I believe that's why you see stocks like paper gold, paper silver, going up and down at the drop of a hat. Somebody farts over in Europe and paper gold goes up. Donald Trump does something great, like win the election, and paper gold goes down. They just immediately, that morning, sold all their paper gold stocks, or let's say a majority of their paper gold stocks, and then put it right back into the stock market that's overvalued and pushed things to new highs. Okay, yesterday he appointed a new Secretary of Finance, of which is a billionaire hedge fund guy. And now all the dumb money thinks that, oh, well, this is great for stocks. Man, oh, we're just going to kill it. We're going to just to the moon, There's no stopping the stock market. So, again, the dumb money, they just went from paper gold to paper stocks and pushed the price of stocks up and dropped the price of gold. Well, the good news for us, in a way, for the stackers, the physical stackers of gold, is the price came down. That's awesome. I consider gold and silver my insurance, and I love it when my insurance premiums come down. Okay. Is gold going to zero? No. Is gold even going to $2,000? No. It's on a pullback. It's not a big deal. They had to push. They didn't have to. They sold their paper gold. And then this is my opinion for what it's worth. I'll get guys that argue with me all day long that I'm wrong, and that's fine. I'm good with that. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm, again, like I said before, just a crazy old man that they finally got the meds right on. I don't know. Hard to say. But my opinion is that they dump them paper gold and chase equities. They're looking for a way to make money in a market that there is no way to make money in. That's all they know. They know stocks. They'd never bought physical gold. They never will buy physical gold. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to acquire it. They don't want to, get it into their possession, of which, if you buy a significant amount of it, can be a pain. And then they don't want to store it. They're not going to store significant amounts of money at home. Let's say $1 million worth of gold. They ain't going to store that at home. They're going to store that in a vault somewhere, and they don't want to pay vault fees. okay? They want that paper gold so they can park their money in paper gold for a minute until they decide which direction to go in and jump right back into stocks. Every time they hear something good about the stock market, they're going to jump in. Every time something happens in the world that's negative, they're going to jump back out of those stocks, sell them to some other fool, hopefully, in their case, a higher price, and then jump back into that paper gold and sit in that paper gold in a minute until they get the next bit of good news. All right, that just keeps pushing the stock market up. The other thing that's pushing the stock market up is 401ks. That's everybody's retirement, practically, not everybody, but you know what I mean. Everybody's retirement, or a good portion of people's retirement, automatically every payday, a portion of their wealth, if you will, goes into stocks. Well, I've already talked about there's no value investors anymore. These guys buy stocks. Whoever's in charge of buying stocks with this retirement money, okay, there's lots of different folks that take care of it, but whoever's taking care of it, they're putting it into the best or the highest overvalued stocks. You got to think that 95% of the stocks in the stock market haven't done shit in 2-3 years. It's only the top 7. So they're putting it there. Oh, what's that doing? That's blowing the top off of things like NVIDIA. I like to pick on NVIDIA. There's others, but let's pick on them for now. Okay? It's going to the moon. There's no stop. It just, wow. This is just the greatest thing since sliced bread. The problem is there is a top. We ain't seen it yet. We don't know what that top is yet, but we will. And if your 401k is heavily invested in the stock market, when right now you can watch your 401k and the numbers just keep going up, right? Seems great. Seems like there can't be an end to it, especially now that Trump's in, right? He's a stock guy. He's going to push stocks to the moon. Well, the problem is all the debt we got in the world with this fiat money. And what are stocks priced in? Fiat money. What if more banks collapse? What is that going to do? That's going to push physical gold higher. And the paper gold, but it'll push it higher due to lack of confidence. What happens if the dumb money in the stock market all of a sudden gets nervous and they can't find a buyer for their NVIDIA stock and everybody starts dumping? Again, remember I talked about they're not trading on value. If you were trading on value and NVIDIA stock had value and not just speculation, you'd hold on to your NVIDIA stock. But when you've speculated on NVIDIA and hoping for the next fool to come around to pay more than you did, okay, what if that fool don't come? What's going to happen? And that day is coming. I don't know when. Week, 2 weeks, 10 months, 18 months, 2 years. Have no idea. I think it's sooner than later. But again, that's just a crazy old man's opinion. Doesn't mean that's the way it's going to work. But that day that there's nobody there to buy that stock and it starts dumping, it will spiral to the bottom. And I'm not saying it's going to the bottom from 100% down to 10%. No, it's not the way it's going to work. There's going to be panic. Stocks will drop by about 35%. Everybody that's been trained over the last 20 years that will buy the dip, 35% dip, buy the dip. It's here. This is where it's at. And then ride it back up. It'll go right back up to all-time highs. So they buy in. A good portion of these folks will buy in, and it'll drop another 35%. And there'll be people with money on the sidelines going, okay, that's it. There we go. 70% drop over 4 months, let's say. It can't get any worse than that. That's the dip. It's time to buy in. And so they'll buy in. And then it drops another 35%. That's a total from top to bottom. If you add up the percentages, 85% off the top. Well, that's way below what actual value is of most of these stocks. The beauty of it is all the zombie companies out there that haven't turned a profit in the last 10 years, but the bank just keeps borrowing them more money to cover up their losses. All those zombie companies will be exposed, and right now you have no idea which companies those are, and you could never find out if you dug deep. You'd never find out what companies are. Zombie companies. You'd never find out. But I'll tell you, you see restaurant chains right now going down, one chain after the other. Well, number one, that's a lot of employees, and that's a lot of money being flushed right down the drain. Every one of those stores that were built, somebody's got money in that store, somebody's invested in that stock, in that chain store stock, one way or another. There's a lot of money invested, and that's going to zero. Every one of them chains that go broke, whoever's invested in that ain't got shit. How about the drugstore chain that just went down? It wasn't Walgreens, it was the other one. Rite Aid, I believe. I believe it was Rite Aid. But regardless, Rite Aid or Walgreens, one of them just went down. Again, here's several years ago, maybe 20 years ago, they were building chain stores all over. We got a Walgreens and a Rite Aid on damn near every street corner. Well, you got to know the first time there's a downturn that not both of them are going to survive. It's going to be one or the other. Which do you invest in? Hard to say. I'll tell you which one you don't want to invest in is the one that's now gone. Okay, but in the past, it was hard to say which one of those two were going to go. But that's where it's going, is to zero. All these zombie companies that the banks have been covering up all their debt and that they're in trouble, and they don't want to show it on their balance sheet that they're in trouble, so they just keep borrowing them more money, more money, more money. These zombie companies can't even pay the interest on their loans. That's all going to come. It's going to come to a head. And maybe you're invested in one of those companies. Maybe your 401k is invested in one of those companies. What happens then? That portion of your 401k goes to zero. I think I've pretty much given you my case on this. Thing to know is that maybe you don't want to get out of your, and I'm surely not trying to talk you into getting rid of your 401k altogether. Just like if you owned NVIDIA stock, and right now I believe it's overvalued. You see where it's overvalued. You don't want to sell all your NVIDIA stock because it is going to go up some more. Maybe you sell 20% of your NVIDIA stock. Okay, then wait a little while, reassess, and you sell another 20% of your NVIDIA stock. Well, same thing with your 401k. Say this crazy old man's wrong. But instead of going, dumping the whole 401k, you dump 20% of your NVIDIA stock or your 401k, you convert it to gold, pay your taxes on it, and in 3 or 4 months, you reassess, and maybe it's necessary to dump another 20%. Maybe you decide to keep it depending on how things are going. But I think that's the way a safe way. That way if the stocks are still rocking, your 401k is still going up, your gold's going up, can't beat it. But if your 401k is starting to tank because stocks are starting to tank, it's time to do at least another 20%. The main thing is reevaluate every 3 months, 4 months, something like that. All right. Good night, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Like, share, and subscribe. And please leave a comment. It helps me come up with content for future videos. Thank you. Good night.